Emotions Matter. Brought to you by emaw.com. That's EMAWW.com. Your solution for emotional intelligence. Thank you for joining me today, your host, Monique, on the Emotions Matter podcast. It is my pleasure to introduce my guest, Phylis Murphy. Phylis Murphy is a Community Independence Coordinator for Independent Living in Newburgh, New York. Phylis specializes in therapeutic recreation, and in addition to her 9 years in her current position, working with developmentally disabled adults, she started her career as a recreational therapist working with nursing home patients. Phylis has spent her own personal recreation time performing in local theater and helping to organize community events and projects. Phylis prides herself in an innate training from her Italian-American family and her colorful upbringing in Brooklyn, New York. All of these experiences add to her unique personality and perspective rooted in a personal mantra of love, kindness, and compassion. And now I'd like to welcome my guest, Phylis Murphy. Welcome, Phylis.
Hey, Monique. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. This is a great pleasure. My first question is, what inspired you to work in therapeutic recreation?
You know, I had two men growing up. My dad and my best friend, Vera. Dad was a recreation person. And I watched them organize activities. And I thought, what a great opportunity for somebody to be able to plan and do things that was in their head and they could put it out there for people to enjoy. So my father was one that did it not for a living, but he was always, come on, let's go make a fort in the backyard and bring your friends and we'll have some fun. And I thought, not only was he a fun dad, but what a great way to do the things that were in his head. And that was some of my inspiration for doing therapeutic recreation.
Oh, great. So your dad was really the main thrust of inspiring you to go in that direction.
Yeah, he always made people feel comfortable. People wanted to be around him. He had a high energy level, and I felt that I had the same qualities. And I just enjoyed how people looked and felt when they were around my father. And his organizational skills were just amazing. He would make pulling weeds out of the front yard in Brooklyn, where I'm from, a fun experience. Something so tedious was everybody in the neighborhood would come to the front yard and want to pull Phil Farina's weeds. And it was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's really great. So you really captured that energy and wanted to apply that to something career-wise, social work, to be around other people. You like that energy that you got. So I can see why the therapeutic recreation would, draw you to it. So, but tell me this, how similar is it working with nursing home patients versus the adults that you work with at the center? Are they just there for the day?
Well, this is what happens. They age out of school, they go to BOCES, and they age out of school at 18. And then there's really nothing for them to do. So they come to my program. It's the Community Independence Program, and it is a day program. We're different than most places in New York. We pick up our clients. We bring them to the center. We have planned and organized activities, which is what I do. They're basically volunteer activities, 2 free days, but 3 days are volunteers. And then we take them home. So they're with us from the time they get on the van, like 7:30 in the morning, till the time we dismiss after lunch, which is 1:30. So it's a day hab program. Yes, to answer your question.
And so how is that different, working with adults that kind of come and go versus nursing home patients? Is there a difference in how you approach therapeutic recreation in that setting?
Yes, absolutely. But it's more alike than it is different. So I'll give you both if you don't mind. What happens in a place where people have to reside is that their motivation levels are very, very low. So not only, for example, geriatric population, they're elderly, they have, things that aren't making them feel very well. Some of them have dementia, and they reside in the nursing home. Their motivation level has to be increased. So when I worked in the nursing home, I would have to do things and have activities that would motivate and get them excited. Whereas people from Dayhab that come into Dayhab, they know their agenda. They know what they're going to do. They have a calendar. They look at it and they know that Tuesday's Meals on Wheels Day. They're going to go deliver meals to people who are shut-ins and can't get out of the house. So they're most of the time, not everybody, they're, excited to do that. Whereas in the nursing home, you had to do more motivating. You had to come up with creative ways to motivate your clients. However, all activities, no matter what they are, could be modified to every population.
And
that's what I did.
Yeah, and it sounds like the purpose seems to also engage them within the community versus the nursing home, where it is more centered around the residents, in the home.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's perfectly put. Because what happens is the program that I do is community independence. So what that means is we go out into the community and we integrate people with disabilities and get them to have purposeful activities within their community. So the community knows us, we know them, and all fears get dispelled, if that's the correct word. They are lifted because they see that they can do things just like everybody else. It might take them a little more time. They might have to be taught a little differently, but that teaches the community how to address these individuals and not have so much of a fear that, here comes a group of individuals that have disabilities. What's going to happen? You think they're going to be able to do it? It's a great thing to have purposeful activities within your community. Everybody knows us. They request us to come down. I mean, we do some pretty cool things. We really do.
Now, can you explain a little bit more of what you mean by the term purposeful activity?
Absolutely. Purposeful activity is what happens when you build people's self-esteem by showing them that they matter, that they are just as important as everybody else. So when we do friendly visitor, that's something that you go shopping for an elderly person who cannot shop for themselves. Not only are you doing the shopping so the people can have food and water, you are giving them your time and you are giving them interaction that they might not get because they're home and they can't get out. So when we go to Jean on Tuesday, she looks so forward to having 5 of my group members go in her house and get the grocery list, and they talk to her and they ask her about her cat and they ask her how her dog is, and they spend a lot of time with her talking. Then we do the shopping. And they feel good that they're able to buy Jean her apple cinnamon buns that she likes so much, and they bring them to her and she's happy. So when they leave that purposeful activity, they've gained, but the people we serve also gained. So it helps them feel like they matter in society, that they are part of society. They're not just people that nobody wants to be around, because that was a stigma for a long time. I had a cousin who passed away, my cousin Frankie. He had Down syndrome, and we were born a month apart, and he was a few years older than me. I'm 53, and he lived to be about 60, which is rare for Down syndrome people. There was a stigma back then, I watched how people treated him. I was afraid in the beginning. I was a young girl. He was very huggy and kissy, and I was 6 or 7. And I looked at my mom, and she would say, "It's okay. He's not going to hurt you." And that's okay to feel that way. You just have to learn. So yeah, it's interesting. Purposeful activities is my mantra. I mean, one of my mantras. I believe that everybody should feel like they have a purpose in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you have a goal of anything, it does fill your life with a sense of belonging. Now, you used a term earlier, and of course, our focus on the show is a sense of emotional intelligence, and you talked about fear. You talked about how by doing these kinds of activities with your group and the community, it helps alleviate your group's sense of fear and the community sense of fear. Can you talk a little bit more about what that fear is?
Sure. For example, we would go to the movies, and when a group of 20 individuals that have Down syndrome and autism, some of them are in wheelchairs, arrive at the movie theater, people tend to look and stare and maybe honestly hold their children a little tighter. Not all people, some people. I am like the goodwill ambassador. I will walk in and I'll be smiling and I'll say, "All right, everybody, we're at the movies. Let's get our list together to go get popcorn." And I'll smile at the child next to me and I'll go, "Hi." And then Heidi will look and say hi. And then all of a sudden, with a simple hello and a simple smile, everybody seems to become at ease. And it's a wonderful thing to watch, because after that initial first impression, which is really what it is, everybody seems to just mesh, and it's okay. But there needs to be a leader, somebody who's in charge of that first impression. I know that might sound strange, but it's really what happens.
When you say a leader, are you meaning that a leader who can come and kind of be an ambassador or a spokesman for the group to help, bridge that sense of communication with them? Or it sounds like before you get into the place,
sometimes.
Are they usually a little bit nervous, like when you're about to go into public? If they're not,
my group, no.
No.
My group,
why would I even think that your group would be nervous?
It's more of everyone else that gets a little nervous. We are right up there smiling, having a good old time and saying hi to everybody. When I say a leader, I try to teach my staff, which is a staff of 5 plus myself, that the group can do for themselves, but you have to be somewhat of an advocate and also a judge the situation and make sure that, the people that are around them are going to feel comfortable, because it makes the experience better for everybody. Do you know what I mean? It just makes the experience less anxiety, and it happens within the first 10 minutes. And then, like I said, everybody just goes about their business. And we've had some, wonderful, wonderful things. For example, we published a cookbook called Together We Cook, and it was an amazing process. What we did was sell those cookbooks at certain local stores that allowed us to stay in front of the store and sell cookbooks. What happened one day that was so amazing was we were in front of the supermarket and we're selling out cookbooks, and people come over and they ask them questions like, "Wow, this cookbook is great. And, how'd you do it?" And that's when I step back and let them answer. They are very capable, and they just spoke so highly of what they did in their own way that we had a crowd of, I would say, about 75 people throughout a couple of hours. And one man came over and was so impressed with us. He handed one of my girls $100, and she said, "Oh, wait, I have to get Phylis to make some change." And he said, "Oh, no, I don't want the change. I want you to put that towards your next venture." And
Oh,
that was, a beautiful thing.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, boy. Tell me, when you were doing your studies in therapeutic recreation, just curious, what kinds of classes help prepare you for actually working with people with disabilities or challenges?
Well, this is a great question, and I'm glad you asked, because I never thought that I would take the road of therapeutic recreation. I figured I would be Julie, the cruise director on a ship, or I would work for the Parks and Recreation Department. And one of my classes at Kingsborough Community College was an internship, and you had to intern Parks and Recreation and therapeutic rec. And I have a strong personality, and I fought this professor. I did not want to go in a nursing home. I did not. My mother was a nurse in a nursing home for 40 years. I didn't mind walking in there, but I did not want to be there. And he said to me, the only way to find out what path you want to go on is you have to take the path that you are most resistant to. And I did it. And I walked into that nursing home. I'll never forget it. And I said, I will never do this. And then after a week, all I wanted to do was be with the elderly and work with them and talk to them and listen about their lives and help motivate them to be happy again. And it was a transforming experience for me. So that was the biggest one, going on an internship for me. Classes that I took were fabulous classes. Social rec. There's a class called Therapeutic Rec. All kinds of crafting and writing classes. It was a great 2-year curriculum for me. I really knew that that's what I wanted to do. I really did. Because prior to that, I graduated high school and I said, I'm not going to go to college. I need to experience life. I want to work. And this is a funny story, and it's worth telling, and I'll tell it quick. My cousin got me a job at the World Trade Center on the 103rd floor in 1981. I was 19, maybe. And I loved getting on the train and getting dressed up and clinking my high heels down the road. And then I went into the building and I was like, oh, I'd say hi to the coffee truck and hi to the electrician. And then I went up to the bank on the 103rd floor and had to sit in a cubicle. I think I lasted a month. And I said, I am not doing this for the rest of my life, ever. And that's when I went to school and said, I'm going to pursue my career in recreation because, quite frankly, I don't like taking orders from anybody. And being in recreation, I just have carte blanche to plan activities and show people love and care and a good time. And working in a nursing home is a little different than working with people with developmental disabilities. In order to do your job well, you need to know your population. That is any population that you're working with, whether it's children, a school, developmentally disabled or geriatric. A trick that I can tell people to do is take out a chart, their chart, and read all about what that person was like when they were younger, because that's what's in a chart for a nursing home patient. And learn about their likes. I've learned that there were people who were actresses on Broadway. There were singers, there were dancers, there were writers, there were homemakers that had 7 or 8 children, and they had an amazing family. And once I got to know those things about them, I incorporated that in how I forged a relationship with them. And once I did that, I was able to motivate and help them live out the rest of their life, because that's what happens in a nursing home. You're not going home. Really, that is your home. And we would sing songs from the 20s. I learned all the songs and I would sing them. And people, grown men in their 90s, would cry because they're thinking back to when they were a young man and singing to a young woman. It was the most beautiful thing. It really was. And I would watch them and they would thank me. And really, I did not want to thank you because I already got more than I gave. But they would thank me and say, thank you. You brought me back to my days. And then we would talk about it. And it was great. It really, really was.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the nursing home can really be a very isolating and very lonely and
yes.
depressing place,
Yes.
which is probably why most people feel uncomfortable when they visit there, because they feel that sense of loss, in the atmosphere. But by just simply knowing about the person and not so much their age, but taking the time to be more acquainted about who they were, as a person, can really change their emotional state. Like you said,
yes.
this low sense of motivation, this low sense of self-esteem is what you tend to find in nursing homes. And it's this, it's like they're disconnected and the world disconnects them. It's like,
absolutely.
It's like going to a nursing home is like you're going to adult prison in a way. We're going to lock you up. Someone else is going to take care of you. I'm not saying that everybody is like this, of course, or that every nursing home is. But like you had said earlier about a stigma, I think that is a true stigma that I think most people fear. And so there's that real sense of sadness. There's this heaviness in the nursing home. But it sounds like you have found ways to help trigger them back into more happier states. And tell me, when, how can you identify for us somebody who may be more withdrawn? And when you have sort of coaxed them out of this, did you notice any changes in their daily habits or rituals that they might have done at the nursing home?
Sure. For example, there was a woman named Frances, and she was tough. And she would stay in her room, get out of here. I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. And I would go, and I was young. I was in my 20s. And I would go in and I'd say, I don't want to disrespect your privacy. I just would like to ask you a question. And I would ask her one question so she could trust me, and then I would leave. I don't remember what that question was, but I know that it was one question, and I would leave. And I would go back the next day, and I'd say, hi, Frances, do you want to come up to the 10th floor and do an activity? Leave me alone. I don't want to get out. Just leave me alone. And I would then remember the question and then bring it up in a sentence. Yesterday you answered my question about what you did when you were 12. Can I ask you another question? All right. Well, you just better make it just one more. And I said, okay. And that went on for a week. And then I noticed that Frances, and this is a true story, would wait at the door for me to come down at the same time. Now she went from her bedroom to the door. And once I saw her waiting in the door in her wheelchair, I knew that she was going to come with me to the 10th floor. And by the middle of the second week, Frances was up on the 10th floor having coffee for social hour. And then she went right back down to her room, but she did come up for social hour. And then by the end of a month, she had her calendar up on her wall with all the activities, and she was picking and choosing the things that she wanted to get involved in. Now, she was still grouchy, but that's where being a motivator and high energy, but also respecting people's personal space and forging trust, if that's the right word, or gaining trust, and knowing that you're doing what you're saying. You can't be overly like, come on, you want to participate. Let's go. You can't do that with everybody. You could do that with some people, but you have to have that instinct. And I have to say, I do have that instinct. That is one of my qualities that I'm glad that I have, so I could judge people in a way that I really understand what their needs are. And that's why I love, love, love what I do. And I loved my time in the nursing home. It gave me so much joy, because I also would give advice to say you have to think out of the box. As I'm speaking about it and remembering all the things that I love to do there, You think out of the box. You don't think that a bunch of people in wheelchairs that have dementia and kind of limited mobility could play basketball, but I'm telling you that they can. If you modify your activity, you bring the basket to them. You're the basket. You hold the basket and you ask them to throw the ball in with whatever part of their body they can. And if I tell you, you'll laugh for an hour, not at them, with them, because you're having such a great time.
Wow.
So you have to think out of the box. You do. You really do. It's key to a good therapeutic recreator. Think out of the box and modify every activity to your population.
You are a true blessing to these people. And the message is clear here that talk to people, reach out to them, sense that it's really is quite simple, but it is so difficult. And why do you think that's difficult? Why? I see your gift, but why do you think some people have a difficult time around the elderly? What do you think that stigma is? What is it that keeps us from reaching out that way?
From my experience, I believe sometimes it's fear of rejection. People are afraid to go over that they might hear, I don't want to talk to you, like I did, or go away. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin. You have to say, okay, all right, you could talk to me later. Rejection is another feeling, another emotion. You feel scared, you're rejected, you feel hurt. I mean, that happens. I have seen that happen. I've seen it happen with young adults that would come into the nursing home and be nervous. I think the stigma too, believe it or not, and I'm not a psychologist, but you look at an old, feeble person, and though you can't identify yet, you might think to yourself, one day, that might be me. And nobody likes to feel sad. And I think that if you allow yourself to really look at it in that dreary way, you'll feel sad. And people don't want to have that feeling. It doesn't smell good in a nursing home. I'm being honest, it doesn't, no matter how much people clean, and they do. So you have to really put aside your own
discomforts.
Thank you. Because I wasn't going to, not feelings, because you need to feel, but discomfort, yes. And I mean, I that's what I think. I think that it's not a pleasant, like you said, it's not a pleasant, environment for everyone. And there's a lot of anxiety and fear that comes with, what is this person going to say? Or, they're confused. What do I do if they try to get up? Not everybody's equipped to handle those things.
Right.
But I'm a firm believer of integrating school children and bring them to a nursing home with the appropriate population and have them visit, because nothing makes elderly people happier than pets or young children. And we did an adopt a grandparent program where we had the local school come in and they had their students adopt one of our nursing home patients, and they would write to them and they sent them Christmas cards. Again, a beautiful, beautiful thing to do, and everybody benefits. The young hear stories of wars and history, and the old get to look through the eyes of a child. It's touching.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of times the kids may have lost a grandparent, may not even have a grandparent. And so that interaction,
absolutely.
The patience that an older person can give a child, the listening ability that an elderly person can give to a child is invaluable. It's priceless, because as adults, we're busy, we're moving from one thing to the next. And unfortunately, we don't always pause, for those little moments or those conversations, etc. And someone who doesn't have anywhere else to go but where they are, they're in the moment. They are in the moment.
It's true.
And so the children can...
you're right.
Yeah, they can benefit from that. So Tell me, in terms of working with the adults versus the nursing home patients, again, we're going to go here a little bit more on the subject of emotions.
Sure.
If you have an issue with an adult and they get, angry, for example, versus like with the nursing home, she told you, go away. Okay, well, I'm going to go away. She's in her room. She's got her space. The adults that come for the day, they don't have ownership necessarily of that place. They don't have necessarily a private area. Nope. So how do you handle emotional states, within that group dynamic?
Great question, Monique, really. And let me tell you, emotional states and outbursts and feeling happens the minute they walk on the van. So if you're going to work with people that are developmentally disabled, emotions play an amazing part and a big piece, and they are a big piece of the puzzle. So what happens, for example, is you have to learn how to de-escalate. Instincts, again, kick in. If somebody gets on the van and they're already agitated for what happens in their group home, because most of my folks live in a group home or they live with their parents, and a couple live on their own. Once they get on the van, I can tell, because I've driven the van before I became the supervisor. I was the driver also. And I would look at them and say, I know that you're having a bad day because I can see it in your face. Let's put that aside. Let's get on the van. Let's put some music on that you might like. And let's just have a nice ride while we go pick up, other folks. And that usually tends to de-escalate. Sometimes people need to speak about what happened. And I will give them 5 to 10 minutes tops to talk about it, because then compulsiveness kicks in and then it goes off in 5 different directions. But venting is important. I mean, I do it all the time. I don't know about you, but I like to vent when I'm upset. So I let them vent. Well, Mary told me I couldn't watch TV today at 3:00. I go, well, it's only 7:30. How about we worry about 3:00 at 3:00? And I'll give you some strategies that you could do to talk to Mary when you get home. So that starts from the time that they get on the van, not for everybody. Now you're at the center and somebody doesn't like where they're sitting. They're jealous. Their friends are sitting someplace else and there's no room at that table. Because let me just tell you, my group is very high functioning and they're between, I would say, 25 and 50, but their mentality is that of middle school. So I am dealing with adults that are, have a middle school mentality. So there's a lot of that. He said, she said, I want to sit with her. Why do you want to do that? And it could get into a big, serious situation sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of, sometimes there's a lot of yelling, a lot of frustration. As I'm sitting here now, I have my hands in a fist because that's what somebody did today. They shake their fists and they go, ooh, I'm so angry. My staff, myself, my staff, we step in. Sometimes we have to tell the person, hey, how about we stand outside so you can calm down because you're upsetting the rest of the group. And we do that in front of everybody because we are a cohesive group and we're not embarrassing anybody. We're showing the rest of the group that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to get upset, but you need to maybe take it outside so the rest of the group isn't affected by it.
Do they get affected by it
very
quickly?
Absolutely. Yes, because some people in my group have a noise thing where if it gets too loud, I mean, sometimes they tell me, Phylis, you're too loud. And I go, I'm sorry. That's my natural speaking voice. And we laugh all day. But they teach me. I have to take it down a notch. I have to understand that some of them have, a hearing thing where it gets too loud. They start to get anxiety. They start to get upset. So if somebody's having an outburst, I have to remember, and these are, Mary, Joe, and Frank are going to join in soon because they're going to be upset also. So I remove the person from the situation respectfully always, and give them a chance to have a quiet place. We have a shared space, but I try to find spots like outside the room where we have our lunch, places like that, so they can calm down and gather their thoughts. And sometimes people want to be alone. Sometimes staff goes with them and helps calm them down. So that's just one incident about when people get upset and angry. A couple of people have outbursts where they throw things. Now, it's not all the time, but they have to know that that's not appropriate behavior for anywhere, but especially in a group participating atmosphere. One time I had a boy who his trigger is no, and it's really hard sometimes to remember that if I say no to David, he's going to get upset. I mean, I'm a human being. Sometimes you forget. And he was going to do something, and I said, "Oh, no, David." And he sat down and picked up his water bottle and flung it at my head, and I tilted to the left, and it hit the wall. And I just looked at him and I said, "David, I'm sorry that I said no," because he has autism. I said, "But we can't," he calls me Mrs. Berry. I don't know why, but he does. And he says, and I said, "You can't treat Mrs. Berry that way." And he says, "Sorry, Mrs. Berry. Sorry, Mrs. Berry." And I say, "Can I hug you? Can I give you a kiss?" Because you have to ask some, I'm very affectionate, and my group 90% are, but you have to ask certain people. And he said, "Yes, Mrs. Berry." And I kissed him on his head, and then I removed myself because I was a little shaken, because if that bottle filled with water would have hit me, I would have gotten hurt. I wasn't shaken to the point where I had to go home that day. I just needed to remove myself and take a breath and remember that I'm dealing with people with developmental disabilities, and that it's okay and it's not personal, but you have to stay on guard sometimes and remember.
Wow.
So, I mean, those are the negative things that happen, and there are some. But to answer your question, and I'm sorry, I think that I went off a little bit.
No, this is great.
Is you have to de-escalate, you have to learn triggers, you have to be genuine. I mean, I am myself in my group. I sit at that desk and I laugh with them. I cry with them. I make fun of myself. They make fun of me. We do it all in a respectful way. Like one time a girl, Kara, said to me, my joke with them is, "Okay, it's only 9:00. Don't stress me." Well, it's true. And when things are going on, one of my clients will say, "Mary, it's only 9:00. Don't stress Phyllis. Her head will turn around in a complete circle." And I go, "That's right. Don't stress me." But that makes me human to
Yes.
them. I'm not just an authority figure. I'm a human being just like they are. And I have my faults or just like they do, or I have my quirks just like they do. And I think that's why we mesh. And I am very affectionate. I hug, kiss, smile, and it sounds corny, but it really goes a long way. It makes a difference. People feel safe and secure. And when they don't, they know that they can come to any one of us and have a meltdown and they won't be judged. They might get told a few things, and that's okay because it's not appropriate, but they're not judged by it.
Is it easier to read their emotional states than, let's say, somebody who doesn't have a mental or physical kind of disability? Do they work with their emotions more in their sleeves than the average person? Mm-hmm.
They wear their emotions on their sleeve because they have this lack of inhibition in a way that some people joke, some people will say to me, "I have no filter between my brain and my mouth." And what happens, it's true. And what happens is they innocently have no filter between their brain and their mouth. So they will spew and say anything that's on their mind, even like, "Phyllis, you look fat today." You know what I mean? And I go, what? And, and we laugh about it. But so their emotions are definitely worn on their sleeve. But you know what? So are their happy emotions and laughter. We laugh. Laughter is one of our most fabulous healing emotions that we can have. And in our group, we laugh most of the day. We laugh at ourselves. We laugh at silly things that happen. We are, even when you're angry, we'll turn it into a joke and we'll laugh about it. All of those things help alleviate the stresses that come from not being able to communicate properly for some, feeling anxiety. I have one girl that lives in a situation that is taxing for her, and she comes in because she feels like she has to take care of everybody because that's what happens at home. And she is anxiety ridden when she walks in the door, and she'll sit down and she'll bang it and she'll go, I can't take this. And I'll say, well, what happened? And she'll say, well, my dad's not feeling well. And I'll say, okay, well, let's think about it. What could we do to help you right now feel better about your dad not feeling well? So that's wearing your emotion out on your sleeve. You're not even in the door yet. And, you're talking about what happens, at home. So yes, emotions are involved in 100% of what we do. I'm not kidding. It's 100% and all the time.
You pointed it out that they just don't have the ability to wear that social mask and do the appropriate filters and think twice before they say something, just like a middle school kid.
No, but that's what we teach.
But you do teach them that.
That's what we try to teach them. Community integration, to go back to your point earlier, was what happens in the community. I will say to them, now remember, everybody, we're going out in the community today, and we're going to act like the adults that we are. And if someone's feeling like they need to have an outburst or there's a problem, go to the staff, remove yourself, because just like I can't stamp my feet up and down because I'm angry about something when we're outside, neither can you. And it's okay to say that. It's teaching them. That doesn't mean that they can control it or do it, but it's okay to say it because I've seen them stop, some of them, and think about it. That's probably not what I should be doing right now. But it depends on the level of the person with the developmental disability. Not everybody has that level. We have one person that she'll say, I understand and I'm sorry. And I'll say, you don't have to be sorry. Just try not to do it again. But she does do it again because she just doesn't have the capability. She just doesn't. So she's going to do it again.
Yeah, but at least she understands compassion.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and at least she understands that she should apologize. I mean, lots of teenagers who have, quote, all the sense in the world don't understand why they need to apologize. So that's still, good social behavior. I do have a listener that has... Yeah, we have some listeners here, and I have somebody that sent me a little email, and let me see, it's Jordan from Florida, and she says that she works with elderly patients in a nursing home, and she says that a lot of them are very sad or depressed. What are some things that she can do to help motivate them or keep them engaged? Is there something in particular, some technique, activity, etc., that you might be able to offer her?
A quick meditation, believe it or not, works very well. I've done this before in the nursing home. If you have the relationship with the person that I believe that this woman must have because she works in the nursing home, you sit with them one-on-one, you ask them to close their eyes, and you ask them what their favorite place, and they say it's the beach, which was told to me. You say, close your eyes and remember your happiest feeling on the beach. Remember how you felt when the sun hit your face and the waves came crashing in and the salt was on your skin. And you allow them the time to think about the suggestions that you are giving them. And it does a world of good. It just opens up the brain, it opens up feelings, and it's an easy thing to do because you don't have to be having a conversation. Sometimes people don't want to speak. They just don't want to have a conversation. So they want to be in their own space, in their own head, but you're directing them. You're helping them get to a happy place. So that's a technique. Going outside, if they're in a nursing home, chances are they don't get out much. If you have the ability to take them on the elevator downstairs, I'm just picturing what I used to do, and take them outside and let them get some fresh air, let them get a little rain on their skin. If it's raining, don't be afraid. Think out of the box. It's okay to take someone out in the rain for a few seconds that, in the appropriate weather. I'm not saying do it in, January in a snowstorm, but maybe, why not? If somebody used to ski and they miss being out in the cold, take them outside for 5 minutes. You don't understand what it'll be like for them to go, oh my God, I haven't felt snow on my hands in 20 years. Those are the things I used to hear. And it's always followed with a thank you. And not that you need it, but boy, you leave feeling, one of the best times I had, Jordan, in the nursing home was working Christmas Day. Now, let me tell you, it's a depressing day in a nursing home on Christmas. But when you can walk around and act like a goofball and be Santa and tell everybody Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or whatever their religious beliefs are, and give a hug and a kiss and a little gift, take them outside in the cold air for a few minutes. It's life transforming for you and them. Get to know your population.
And the sensory thing, I mean, every suggestion that you've changing one's sensory perception and how that can change our moods. Mm-hmm. So that's great advice. It's true. And if you think about it, they've been denied that sensory change, really. I mean, if they've been raising children, family, cooking, mowing the lawn, whatever it is, your senses, traveling, vacationing, I mean, that's just all seems to be taken away for a lot of them when they're in the nursing home. And so just introducing some of those elements can really open up their sensory perception more. Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine being this vibrant, integral part of society, your family, whatever that means to you, and having that taken away because of health issues, because you got older and you're 21 in your mind. This is what elderly people would tell me, and I would cry. But I'm still that girl. I'm still that 25-year-old girl. It's just that my body doesn't know it anymore. And I would go, oh my gosh, you are. I understand now. And this is when I was young in the field. But that one saying made me feel like I will forever see you as that 25-year-old girl. I will make the effort to see you as you want to be seen. Not this old lady in the wheelchair staring out in the window wondering, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to see you like you want to be seen.
That is true. I mean, you don't have to be 80 and in a wheelchair to still feel like you think like a 25-year-old, but your body doesn't believe you. You don't have to get that old to start thinking those thoughts. So I could definitely have empathy with those comments. Right. Where can people learn more about this subject or more about you?
Well, you could go to www.myindependentliving.org or simply justindependentliving.org. And we have a wonderful website, and there's videos of what we do. And there's a video of myself with the group, and you'll enjoy seeing it. You could also go to YouTube and put in Together We Cook. We made a video about our cookbook. Just go right to YouTube. Put in Together We Cook and we'll come up. You could put in Independent Living in YouTube, Independent Living Inc., and we'll come up, and you'll learn all about the programs that we provide for people.
And if people want to buy the cookbook, is it still available?
It is available. It's $10. It's a great cookbook. It has all recipes from people's families, community, local in the New York area. We have beautiful quotes. We have pictures. And you could buy it from, if you go to YouTube and you look up Together We Cook, it'll tell you where you can buy it. Send me $10 and I will send you a cookbook and we'll take care of the shipping. We just want you to have it.
You should send them an autographed cookbook, though. Say you should get everybody whose recipes are in there. They should, or certainly your autograph, because that would be special.
Well, thank you. I will have my group autograph the cookbook. Everybody will sign their name.
Yeah, say I listened to this podcast on Emotions Matter, and I would love to have a specially autographed cookbook from the members who put it together, and from Phylis Murphy. That would be a very wonderful gift. What I've learned here today is there's no such thing as limited, that you are only limited by your imagination, and that all of these individuals can still, continue to have thriving lives that bring joy not only to themselves, but to the community that they live in.
Absolutely, Monique. There are no limitations. Mm-hmm.
Thank you again so much for joining me today, Phylis. And thank you for joining me, your host, Monique, on the Emotions Matter podcast.